Okay, so we're speaking again with Ian from Bondi Behaviourist, and today we're going to talk more about diet and how it affects your dog's behaviour and that sort of thing. So one of the questions that we got from one of our followers was a change in diet and how that affects their dog's behaviour. So have you noticed that a change in dog's diet has affected their behaviour, either good or bad?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important to note I'm not a vet and I'm not an expert on it, but we do get first-hand insight into a dog's behavior in our role, and inevitably you see consequences and trends and things come up all the time. So, and diet is a factor. One of my really good friends, vet friends, he talks a lot about gut health in relation to skin and mental health. And it's no different in humans to dogs in that regard. If you get a healthy microbiome in the gut, you're going to get better skin and mental health.
Yeah.
And so certain things that we look out for, behaviorally, if the dog is taking a crap more than a couple of times a day, there's probably something wrong. If it's taking more than one or two on a walk and they start to get sloppier, for lack of a better word, throughout the walk, then it's probably a stress poop. So this is all these, and stress will play a major part in the dog's ability to digest the food that it absorbs or is put into it anyway. So you could be feeding the dog really good food and it's under massive stress and the body just can't digest anything like very well. So it all ties in really closely. So if we see see problematic behaviors, then we will look at the gut. And if the vet can help you with that, then brilliant.
Yeah.
And if you can see problems with the gut, I'd almost expect some behavioral consequences as well.
So same as us, really.
Yeah. And we almost goes unnoticed so often because you might end up having bad guts for a few days, and you think about it, it's like you can normalize it. Oh, I had that curry, I shouldn't have had it. Yeah. But the reality is, then it wakes you up throughout the night. You end up not sleeping so well. You end up agitated throughout the day, and it's a cumulative of mild stressors that maybe wouldn't, if they weren't there, you wouldn't be behaving the same way. Otis has just decided to join me. And it's taken us months to get his gut right, actually. And the day that we did, we immediately started seeing behavior shifts, even in our own dog.
Yeah, really? Just more happier and less stressed?
Absolutely. As his bowels calmed down, so did his brain. And it was about getting, process of elimination, what proteins worked for him, what didn't. And and just making sure that we don't try and test him in his diet. We've got I can't remember the numbers, but we've got so many more taste buds than our dogs, and our dogs don't have the same palate. And they don't need all these different flavors all the time. If you stick to something that your dog really enjoys and is good for them, it's not really the same motive to change it for them as we would have for us. They're going to thrive on a bit of consistency.
Yeah. So you think stick more to whole foods rather than sort of your kibble type? Yeah.
Typically, yeah. There are some good kibbles out there. I really think that kibble's turned a corner. It's not necessarily that kibble's bad. It's what has stereotypically gone into kibble for a long time is bad. All the fillers and preservatives are my big concern, but there are some really good ones out there as well. But at the same time, I just think personal preference is, whole foods or, frozen foods. So where all of the freshness is there and all the nutrients are there is my personal preference.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. So I guess the next question is, can a change in diet really improve their anxiety and aggression? I know we touched on that. So like you're saying, if they're finding they're a bit heavy or a bit sluggish, then maybe, switching that diet and, as you said, changing it up a little bit and finding what protein works for your dog best is can trigger some things and improve things. Because I know for Molly, one stage I changed her food and it had a lot of chicken in it, and she was getting sores on her feet. And it took me forever to realize that it was the chicken. And chicken just doesn't agree with her. Salmon works really well for her though. So is that sort of what you'd recommend? Just sort of trial and error?
Yeah, well, yes, with a bit of with deliberation, because we've got to give it a chance to see the effect. So if you're going to go into an elimination diet, consult your vet, because it's really important to strip it back and add something in, allow the body to acknowledge it's there and react before you start adding anything else in. And you've got to be quite systematic with it and actually log what's happening. Otherwise, you're guessing and you don't know what you've changed when.
Yeah.
You know, simple little things as well. You know, if Molly's getting itchy feet from that chicken intolerance, then the itchy feet, again, we go back into the behavior change, because it's going to make it irritable.
Yeah.
We had a dog that was we were working with, and it had a big behavior change, and it had become reactive to some dogs that it encountered. And when we broke it down and actually analyzed it, so first of all, my boy's just decided to become a chimp. She'd been through an operation recently, and on her joints, so she'd been less mobile. They hadn't reduced her food, so she'd put on weight. Now, that sounds obvious, but at the same time, when we're looking at why the aggression increased, now remembering aggression's fear-based, and essentially what she wanted was distant from what she was scared of. Her ability to move away from the stressor was compromised because she was in pain and heavier and so slower.
Yeah, right.
So what she'd learned was, I can't move away anymore. I need you to leave still. So I'm going to now bark and lunge. And so it's really subtle, but when we start really digging into what's been happening and why and what's changing, then we need to see it on a really wider lens rather than just thinking she's being naughty, because, well, we know she's not.
Yeah.
Let's figure out what's really going on there.
Yeah, makes sense, because I mean, we do the same thing, so that makes total sense.
Yeah.
So I guess something that's a little bit controversial, or I'm hearing a lot more about now, is CBD oils for dogs, whether it be to calm them down or what have you. Have you heard much about the use of CBD oil, and what are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I, working with Behaviour, CBD oils had come into, dog society, I guess, as something that can help with this sort of thing. And yeah, we have had experience with it. It's obviously never us that prescribe it or anything, because we're just not qualified enough as a vet. And sometimes, to be honest, let's be honest, it's not always the vet that prescribes it. It's the client that's gone out and got it themselves. But that's really, we do not recommend that. It's got to be done very carefully. But in truth, like, when it comes down to altering behavior, we come from a perspective of training and management. Train the dog to do wanted behaviors. Don't manage the dog so that it's in a situation where it can succeed, and don't set it up to fail. They're the real fundamental principles. But there are situations where the dog's quality of life or the speed of the training really is compromised without extra medical help. And so we're not against medication whatsoever. In fact, we honestly believe, like, everybody's quality of life can improve in certain circumstances for it. The old chimp's really going for it today, isn't he?
Love it.
And so we work with dogs that are on Western medicine. We work with dogs that are on Chinese herbs, and we work with dogs that are on CBD. And with that, in all honesty, they all work. We get results, really consistent results with all of them. And for me, it goes back down to personal preference. There's nothing wrong with the way you feel about one of them, as long as you actually acknowledge, I can help my dog more by bringing one of these in, if necessary, then you're doing right by your dog. And then you go with the one that your vet and you decide is best.
Okay, well, it's good to know, because I think you know, as a consumer, trying to navigate your way through the market, you know, you hear CBD oil, you hear hemp, you know, hemp seed oil. You know, there was one that, you know, I'd come across, and then a whole bunch of people were telling me about it. It was like it was some sort of oil that, you know, you sort of roll on your dog, and that was supposed to be calming. And it's just so hard to know what is, one, safe, you know, two, what's going to work, and whether it's all just a bit gimmicky, and really we should just be focusing on keeping it natural in terms of more behavioral training, you know, making sure that their diet's not upsetting them, which is going to affect their behavior. So these are good things to know.
Well, like we say, with the changing of diet, it's, in my opinion, it's still important to apply like a logical process. So, you know, it's very rare that I would suggest any form of medication on the first or second consult. That's not to say that I don't, because I've been in this industry a long time, and you recognize when a dog really needs help. But if you change too much all at once, you simply don't know what's actually worked and which one hasn't. So you end up then guessing, and guessing when you're trying to resolve problems is futile. So yeah, it can work. It's definitely really important to get current, most up-to-date medical advice on that, and from a professional, and that is probably found in Canada.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, those guys, they've legalized it. So so the money that has gone into research over there is made the information much more relevant, and of course more substantial.
Wonderful. Well, that's all the questions that we've got at the moment. But yeah, thank you so much. It's good takeaways. So I'll come up with some more questions for you for next time. But that's awesome. Thanks, Ian. Loved it.
Thanks so much for having me.